Welcome to August. Well, just as quickly as the year has passed, so too has the Lowcountry grown. This month, we're checking in with various municipalities across the region. Here to kick off our local mayor series is Goose Creek Mayor Greg Habib. Great to have you.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Okay, so you have been mayor since 2018, and just in that short period of time, how has Goose Creek changed?
So we've grown. We've not grown with the pace that sort of people think that you've grown residentially. I mean, it has sort of taken off, more building, and that we have grown. We've grown really commercially significantly, and that's been the effort that I made. You know, sort of the whole reason I ran for mayor was we needed commercial growth in our city. We've opened nearly 20 new restaurants in Goose Creek in the last 4 years. We've opened over 50 new businesses in Goose Creek in the last 4 years. But more than that, sort of how we operate has changed. We've had great turnover through retirement. You know, every single department head we have in the city of Goose Creek is new. Virtually every council member is new in the last 6 or 8 years. So there's been a whole lot of new blood, a whole lot of change, a whole lot of new people, a whole lot of new ideas that are sort of converging in this area.
But that's not to say, though, that you're new to the area. You grew up in Goose Creek.
Well,
you actually served on city council before you became mayor as well.
Well, as you know, again, as much as people can grow up in Goose Creek, I moved here in the Navy. My father was in the Navy, and that's how I got here, and that's how a lot of folks in the city of Goose Creek got here was through the military. Goose Creek is very much a military town. Its growth is due heavily on the military historically. So moved here in '82, ran for council in 2016, so not forever, but I've been involved in obviously a lot of things in our city, from coaching sports for my kids and being involved in other various activities in and around the city. But ran for council in 16 and then mayor in 18.
And so when you talk about growth and when you talk about change, what was your vision before you ever served public office for your town? So raising your family there, what were some of the things that you as a resident, as a citizen, wanted to see?
Well, what you recognize as you're raising a family and going through your career and living everyday life is how often you're leaving the city to meet some needs that you have. And you know, it's often a complaint for people who live in Goose Creek that, you know, we need more restaurants here, we need more of these, all of these other things to meet the needs of the folks who live there. And you recognize that as a citizen, or at least I did.
Sure.
And so before 2016, when I started thinking about this kind of service, I recognized what I felt were some shortfalls in how our city was operating, and ran for council. When you run for council, then you really learn sort of how the sausage is made, as it were. And then, you know, saw the need, I think, to move our city in a direction that made more economic sense to me. And so that end, economic development, to meet those needs as a private citizen, economic development means I'm going to be able to meet more of my needs within my town. And that's really important regionally. You know, when you recognize that Goose Creek is the 8th largest city in South Carolina, we're 47,000 people. We're highly educated, highly diverse, high earning, and very young. We have the second highest median income in the area of the largest cities to Mount Pleasant. Our median age is 33. Mount Pleasant's, by the way, is 40. So what happens when our 33-year-olds become 40-year-olds? We have a very dynamic community. And when you have such a dynamic community, as young as we are, I'm old now for Goose Creek, you want to work to give those families an opportunity to meet more of their needs in our city.
And you're hearing with that particular population, you're thinking progress. I mean, they've got to think about as they get older, as they continue to raise their children, as those children go off to college and so forth, but you still have a camp of folks who have been born and raised in Goose Creek, or they have lived there for a very long time and they don't want to see it grow. But you also say that a lot of this growth was in play many, many years ago, that there was a plan for its trajectory, not just since yesterday, but since at least 2 decades ago.
Right, Layla. So, you know, you hear a lot of people, stop building. You hear it all over Charleston, not just Goose Creek, but you hear it all over, stop building. Well, unfortunately, it doesn't really work that way. South Carolina has some pretty hard property rights laws, but also the agreements are in place to build these houses, have been in place for 20, 25 years in the city of Goose Creek. And so the growth, the residential growth, that's really been in place for a long time. You also, again, I go back to, you cannot view Goose Creek as its own entity when you're talking about growth. You have to recognize that we are within a region. And we have an impact on our region, and our region certainly has an impact on us. People talk about traffic in Goose Creek all the time. Well, most of the traffic in Goose Creek is because everybody from that end of Berkeley County to get to somewhere else has to drive through our city.
Sure, of course.
So the growth there has been planned for a long time, and it's now taking place. That's residential growth. But in order for an economy to work, you have to have both, from economic development and residential
it's all
development.
about infrastructure. You have to have some kind of an infrastructure.
Well, you have to have infrastructure, and infrastructure is more than just roads.
Yeah, no, I mean commercial
Exactly.
infrastructure. You need to have a grocery store that is not 20 miles away.
That's right. No, and again, you're making that point for me. What we tell communities now, if they want to come and build a community in Goose Creek, build houses in Goose Creek, you have to build a community. Yeah. So how many of those citizens can meet their needs in their neighborhood?
Right.
And that is how you reduce traffic.
Sure. Well, and you just opened up the Goose Creek Recreation, Central Creek Park, I should say. So that's a new spot for people to go and enjoy and have some recreation time. You also have art now has become central to Goose Creek. So what is your vision for the future from this day forward? What are you hoping to see for Goose Creek?
So, I've said this and I tell people this, my goal for our city, everything I do is about our quality of life, and everything I do is to create an opportunity for people to come together. Now, I don't mean that in a metaphorical way. I don't mean to sing Kumbaya. I mean literally for people to get out of their home, get in their car, on their bike, or in their walking shoes, and go to where other people are. Because I believe that's how you build community. Goose Creek is not a small town. You know, I caution people against that. But and this may sound, corny or semantics, but I want it to feel like our hometown for the time that you live there. Yeah. And so by creating opportunities for folks to come together in our new John McCants Veterans Park, to honor veterans the way that we should have and now have for years, for that neighborhood to be able to come together and have community and fellowship together is very meaningful. Certainly. Breaking ground on the new Central Creek Park, which got its name because it's essentially in the middle of our city. It is a $9.5 million project that is going to give all of our citizens an opportunity to come together and recreate and get to know one another. And so everything we do, our vision, my vision for the city, is to create as many opportunities as possible for people to come together. And when they do that, I'd like them to see something pretty while they're there. I
think we're going to end it on that note. Mayor Habib, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
Appreciate
you for
that.
Having me.
We're back after this.